Hey guys, what's up? This is Brian with Games Under Pressure. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Stealth Inc. 2, and this is a game that was just released on new-gen platforms like Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 and actually the Vita too. This is the Xbox One version of the game, and the reason that I chose the Xbox One version of the game is because I think that's the version that not a lot of people are playing. This came out a few days earlier than the PlayStation 4 version, so I thought, you know what, why not play the Xbox One version, give people an idea of what the Xbox One version looks like. I'm gonna let you listen to this. This is the intro. It's kind of fun. So there you go. That's the setup for the story. Kind of interesting. What is even more interesting, though, than the story is just the dissonance between the very simple, cartoony, visual style of this game, the aesthetic, and the gory, violent, terrible things that fall upon your clone. You'll see a little bit later on. It is really violent with a lot of blood and everything. So it's a neat theme, and I think they do it pretty well. This is a very difficult game to explain. First of all, this is the sequel to a game that was originally released on Windows platforms, and that game was called Stealth Bastard Deluxe Tactical Espionage Arsehole. Okay, that was the name, and they changed that name when the game eventually came to the PlayStation 3 in, I believe, 2013 or so. Then they changed it to Stealth Inc. A Clone in the Dark. This is a game developed by Curve, and it's very difficult to explain. It sort of melds a lot of different genres. First and foremost, it's a puzzle game, as you'll see. This first part, they don't really do a heck of a lot with the puzzle aspect of it, but it's all about progressing through a level, avoiding death, and figuring out the sort of intellectual challenges that arise within each level. So here is sort of a microcosm of what you're going to see moving forward. Basically, you have a small room and a terminal on one side of the room, somewhere in the room, and the terminal opens a door. In that room, you're going to have enemies or obstacles to overcome to get to that terminal, to find that terminal. Sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's not, and open the door to progress to the next chamber where you're going to do the same thing all over again. And like I mentioned, this first part is it's not really indicative of what the actual game is. This is sort of the cinematic escape, if you will, of this clone, and it's pretty cool. It's sort of an effective action portion of this story. It introduces you in a unique way to this world, some of the mechanics. It basically acts as a tutorial. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do a video about this game in particular is because I think it is a little polarizing. And it's polarizing because, first of all, I think the visual style is something that not everybody is going to appreciate. I personally don't really care for the visual style of this, some of the art design. In some spots, I think it's a little bit garish. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh a word, but it just sort of rubs me the wrong way sometimes, and that's just total personal opinion. You might very well think it's really cool looking. I know a lot of people out there do, but for me, it just doesn't hit all the right buttons. You might think of this sort of as an action game just by looking at it, by looking at some of the trailers, but it really is more of a puzzler. So there are some platforming elements for sure. You're going to have to jump gaps, and you're going to have to avoid lasers, and you're going to have to sneak around enemies. As the name would imply, stealth is a big part of this game, but it is more cerebral than it is action-oriented. One of the nice touches about this is the way that they handle this intro tutorial section. You see these giant, they're almost like weird shadow words on the wall projected in some way. They guide you along, and they really do a good job of easing you into everything, because it does get a little bit complicated when you have the action part of it, you have the puzzle part of it, and you can interact with a number of different things in the environment, switches on the ground. You can see that this other little clone is joining me there and pushing this block. So there are some fairly and you can see it's a dark game. I mean, that little clone was just basically like chewed up and spat out by that spinning wheel of death. And the story here actually gets a little bit fun in some ways, because you have this guy who is trying to beat this other dude, and then he forms this very strong adversarial relationship with the clone because he so badly wants to kill that little thing. So it's sort of this weird power dynamic that's sort of cool. You can see him really zero in on him there, and I do like the direction of those cinematics, but just the overall design is something that I just can't really get past. So here is sort of where the game gets into what it actually is, that first section notwithstanding. You're going to see stealth come into play a little bit here, some of the platforming. So, for example, that security camera right there, that is going to spot you. When it spots you, a few different things happen. Number one, it's going to lock down the area. So, you see I just went around them right there. This little dog with the speaker as the head. If he spots you, he'll lock down the area. As you can see, you won't be able to get through. So it's all about finding ways around some of these challenges, some of these obstacles in your way. The vision cones are really handy. You can see where people are looking, where the cameras are looking, which is pretty cool. And yeah, it's all about getting past a lot of these characters undetected. You can see the lockdown here, which is pretty interesting. A lot of platforming to get around some of those obstacles. So it's this weird mishmash of these different genres. It's a little bit, almost something like Portal, where you have this really great first-person shooter side of it, but then you have this puzzle side of it. This is almost like a 2D. In some ways, you have a map like Metroidvania. There's this larger area that you can move around in. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time with the elevator, but it's this weird mishmash of genres, and it's a little bit difficult to wrap your head around in some ways. So this part is introducing some new things. You can see that there are collectibles scattered around the environment. You can go back to some of these environments whenever you want, and try to get some of those collectibles and try to. You can see that I have a map right here, actually. So you can see that the area is fairly large, and you have an area where you need to go. It's pinpointed on the map. So almost like a Metroidvania style map to this, which is interesting. It gives you some reason to go back, some reason to move through these areas, using your stealth, using things that you've learned a little bit later on to try to collect some of those power-ups, which I think is sort of neat. You can see some basic platforming here as well, too. You can climb onto those edges, actually any edges. Most of the time, they're going to be these very small little handholds in the wall that you can go through, or that you can latch onto. Typically, you can jump side to side when you're holding on to those walls. You can jump up. At the bottom of the screen, you have these readouts that say fully visible, not visible, partially visible, and those are just that just basically shows you if you're seen or not seen. If you are fully visible, sometimes areas will be closed off for you, so it's important to keep an eye out on. So I'm pretty close to beating this part of the game, and after this level, it gets to be a little bit more typical. It's really about, if you could sum this game up, it's about getting from point A to point B using your tools, using the environment to get that done. So there are switches in the floor here. What I'm basically doing is trying to open this area up for myself. You can see, yeah, I can't access that way. So let's go down here, push this block down on that switch, and there you go. That opens that. Here's the end of the level, and when you're done with a level, it's going to give you a little readout. It doesn't do it here, but it's going to give you a grade. You can check the leaderboards. If you do it within a certain time, if you do it with meeting certain criteria, you're going to get a better grade based on what you managed to accomplish. So here's where it gets interesting, all right? What they do is they give you a little partner in some of these levels. Not all. Some of these levels, they give you a little partner. So it's about trying to get yourself and your partner to the end of the level. I can hack and I can interact with a lot of the environment. Typically, the partner clone can't really, but he does sort of have a mind of his own. So if you open a path for him, he will automatically go over to where you a door that you opened up or a switch that you made available to him and press it. So you don't have any direct control over that partner clone. You can just open the path for him and allow him to do his thing. And I gotta say, so far I haven't experienced any weirdness with the AI. I think it's pretty heavily scripted in a lot of these areas, but it works actually very, very well. So right now I'm in this general area. I just went into a test chamber, and in these test chambers you can view them almost as a single portal room. In a lot of ways, it is just a singular area that you go into, you beat, you return to the main area, and then from there you can move on to other test chambers, which is it's an interesting way to set things up. So you can see here that I'm triggering some of these switches. My partner clone is triggering some of these switches, and so check this out. Yeah, you can press this little switch, get out of the way really quick, and it's all about helping your little clone reach you, and then using your little clone to reach other different areas. And I think I think I put that on the wrong one now. Yeah, so I'm gonna move this back over here, then use those little handholds to get up. And say I just freed my little partner clone, and he's gonna do his thing. He's just gonna go over there. He is going to stand on one of those buttons. I'm gonna use this block to move it onto the other and access. So you can watch the partner clone here. He's gonna move autonomously. And those are some nasty lasers there that I don't want to trigger. Scripted, very clean. Gets the job done for sure. And it forces you to use your brain in a little bit of a different way. You have to worry about the clone dying, you have to worry about yourself dying, and you have to figure out, how do I use this little dude to gain access? In a way, it actually, you almost feel like you have a relationship with some of these guys. And here's the terminal. So when I hack the terminal, my little buddy is going to be able to go over there with my help. I'm going to open this door for him, and he's off. And then I can follow him. So that is a pretty typical level. What the game does a little bit later on, they start adding new environmental factors in here. And while I haven't completed this game, they will start adding things like smoke or you know, like fans, things like that, to obscure different security cameras or to obscure the view of different enemies so you can sneak past. And it's an environmental puzzler. I mean, it's using things at your disposal to get from point A to point B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. That was the intro, the first real level. I'm going to show you a little bit of the smoke that I was talking about, and hopefully that'll give you a better, more comprehensive view of what this game has in store. So here we go. This is a later level. It's not super far after what I just showed you, but you can see here the stealth is becoming a larger part of it. So if you're seen by any of these cameras, you are basically chopped up by a laser, which you'll see here in a second. I'm going to trigger this. And you can see just the violent, terrible death here. There you go. Little bits of clone everywhere. It's kind of gross. Yeah, so it becomes this weird thing. This really stealthy, strange, almost like Metal Gear Solid in some ways, kind of experience. And they're not afraid to throw new things at you, which is always appreciated. So let's see what I gotta do here. I gotta open that up long enough for the smoke to pile up on the ceiling. Let go of it, and there you go. Kind of cool. Now I get my little buddy to help as well. Oh, I just rescued him. That's cool. And it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of playing around and trying to come up with the best possible solution. So you can see here, I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just sort of experimenting and seeing what does what here. And apparently you cannot touch the fan blades. So that is very important to know. And yeah, like I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is my first playthrough. And I'm trying to get over to that room on the right. Trying to trigger that switch. There we go. I think I just gotta jump and clear that ceiling a little bit. There we go. Cool. So that is Stealth Inc. 2 in a nutshell. It's interesting. Personally speaking, I gotta say, it's not my cup of tea. You know, I bought this game to do this video, and that's about all the time I'll spend with it. I'm sure it's a really great game, but you know, it's just one of those personal preference kind of things. I'm not a big fan of the art style. I'm not a really big fan of the story in any meaningful way. This is not my type of puzzle game, but you know, if you like puzzle games, I'm sure this is something that you should definitely consider. Check it out, read a few reviews, and see if it's something that would, if it's enticing to you. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and if you would be so kind as to subscribe, I would be very appreciative. That will help me keep bringing you videos like this in the future, and I will catch you next time.